So today, Simon's going to kick things off talking about 7.1 and also Plex Futures. And then John will be adding in getting the most out of your Plex world. We'll then switch to the new CA2E release 8.7. And Simon again will be talking about the product features and benefits, and also the future of 2E, and then John will be following up with getting the most out of your 2E world. We will then come back to question period and Q&A session. So I would invite you, if you look at your own panels, each of the audience members on the right, you'll see a section marked questions with a drop down. You're free to answer, to ask questions in here, and we'll look at that during the procedure. Also, other audience members are invited to chime in on the question part too. You can also participate if you get something to add to a question which is submitted. And the next slide here is just going to formalize that to let you know that it's quite all right. We want to get as many questions as we can. If you run out of time at the end, we will assemble all the questions. John and Simon will then indicate responses, and I will send out an email to everybody who is on the call about that. So without further ado, let's start talking about CA Plex 7.1 and Simon, the product owner. Take it away, Simon.
Thank you, Mark. Can you hear me loud and clear?
I can, Simon.
Jolly good. Okay. So I'm just catching up to your displays here, Mark. Okay, so Plex 7.1. We have lots to talk about in a pretty tight schedule, so I'm going to talk about Plex 7.1 for about maybe 4 minutes. So we'll start off with the manifesto, or another word might be charter, as we call it these days, or a vision. So what was Plex 7.1 about? It's about improving the Windows modernization story to simplify the migration from those folks who wanted to move from C++ to from C++ to .NET. And also adding new features along the way to support that, like localization support, click-once deployment. I'll summarize those quickly in a minute. And improve support to allow you to do testing, especially automated testing, and some various customer requests along the way. So some interesting facts. We did achieve that vision back in February 2014. Plex 7.1 is GA. We have spoken about it in the past, but we're just talking about it at a high level here. It was the first agile release of Plex, where we were doing Scrum-based development every 4 weeks. We'd show a slice of value to registered agile collaboration customers just for the purpose of validation collaboration. They couldn't use it in support, but it gave us great feedback as to were we on the right track. It was also the shortest release cycle in Plex's history, just 12 months from start to finish, getting the value in the customer's hands, which speaks to, we are all about agile here at CA, and Plex is no exception, and neither am I. If you look at the agile principles, number 1 at the top, our highest priority is to satisfy the customer through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. I have that printed on my notice board. That's what drives us every day. So to get a release in customers' hands within 12 months was brilliant. There was no beta program. Yeah, a beta program does 2 things, I think. It validates we built the thing right, and validates that we built the right thing. And Agile, that's what we do as we go along. The Agile Collaboration Program, as we go along, ensures that we're building the thing correctly every sprint, every day, every line of code, everything we test. And same thing with the validation. It's in the sprints as we go along that we check, have we gone far enough? Do we need to throw something away? Do we need to go further? We followed our zero defect policy, which means no new bugs as a result of new development. And also we had a happiness graphing or value graphing where we literally asked the customers, the Agile Collaboration customers, at the end of every sprint, how happy does this thing that we've worked on make you? Are you crying into your hands and it's a 0? Is it going to make your life hard? It's a 4. Is it okay but it looks a bit difficult to use? Or is it 10? You're doing cartwheels and somersaults. And you can see the score. These are real scores with the customer names anonymized, but you can see that happiness graphing showed us we were indeed on the right track. So there are a bunch of slides following after this. I'm not going to be doing a demo of 7.1 or any Plex or 2E functionality today. It's really to talk about the high-level summary of where we are with these products and where we're going. But and there are some more slides with further detail if we are going to share the slides afterwards. But just at a high level, ActiveX support. The reason that we wanted that in there was so that customers who were upgrading didn't need to spend time having to buy new upgraded controls or re-engineer their business applications. Click Once support was so that we wanted a single entry point for a code library, so that when Plex is automatically building the exe for .NET applications, the build is faster, it's simpler, it's less error prone, and you don't have to hunt around for the right entry point or consult your external documentation. The localization support is really cool, because what that allows you to do is have externalized, localized resources, say for French, Spanish, whatever, which can be switched out at runtime, so you don't have to generate, build, test, and deploy multiple versions of the applications just for language reasons. UI testing tool support for .NET and C++, so that you can reference control IDs by a reference rather than position. So if you change your layout, if you move fields around, you don't have to go and redo all your QA automation. DLL versioning, which makes it easier for support to diagnose, what exactly have you got in your environment, to try and understand what's going on, how it can be improved. And then also to an enhancement here to provide a broader range of keyboard shortcut support for generated C++ applications. So that's at a super high level. I'm going to skip through these detail slides. We can come back to those at the end if people have questions, or it might spur you to have conversations on the community, or go and find out a bit more about it. So where can you get more information about Plex 7.1? Well, for sure, on the communities. You can also go and get it right now today from support.ca.com. Same licenses as previous releases. It's got a really fancy new end-to-end bookshelf, which encompasses more than just the doc. Of course, it's got the release notes and so on, but it's got links to scenario documents which explain better how to use the functionality of the product, links to community, the idea wall, and so on. And you can easily access it from the add-ins in the tool by clicking the CA Plex bookshelf link. That was Plex 7.1 GA. Since then, literally in the past, I think 2 or 3 weeks, now the documentation is available on a Plex 7.1 wiki site. So if you go to wiki.ca.com/display/Plex 7.1 you can see the Plex 7.1 doc there today. That is the latest version of 7.1 doc, so that's because it's online, it's updated. The really cool thing about the wiki is that it is indeed interactive. You can like or not like pages. We've got analytics so we can understand which part of the docs are being used. You can make comments as well. I love this section. I don't love this section. This is confusing. This is wrong. What about some more information here? Whatever you want to put there. So there's a much more opportunity for collaboration and conversation there. And the information services folks who do the tech writing have obviously got their eye on that. And as you provide feedback, we can respond to that pretty swiftly. So that's Plex 7.1. It was really focused around agile development. If you want to join a future collaboration program, whether it's 7.2, which is ongoing now, I'll talk about in a minute, or future ones, you can contact me or the product manager, Dan Short. If you have ideas or enhancements for the product, you go to the ideal, that is the primary communication channel. We're not accepting enhancements through the support system anymore. Go to the idea wall. That's where the collaboration is. You can vote on existing ideas, either vote them up or vote them down. Or you can put your own idea in there. If you want to see something in the product, we need to hear your voices, And it's cool to encourage other people to speak on the subject as well. So maybe in the community, which we talk a little bit below, say, I've just posted this idea. What's happening with SQL and Plex? What's happening with Java services and Plex? What's happening with web services with 2E? Whatever you want to see, the idea wall is a place to communicate that, and the community is a great place to talk about it as well. We'll talk about it in a bit more detail. We've got the 7th, count them, 7th CA2E Plex Worldwide Conference coming up in May. I just want to touch quickly on Plex 7.2. Okay, Plex 7.2 is not GA. I'll quickly talk about the charter, the Agile Collaboration Program, and the incremental release. I'm just checking out the time, so I've got about 2 minutes left for this section. You know, Mark touched on the legal side at the beginning. All features and dates are subject to change and withdrawal. Yeah, let me make that super clear, not to mismanage anybody's expectations. In large part due to agile collaboration and validation, just because we talk about what might be in a future release does not guarantee that it will be. Okay, I cannot be clearer on that point. Right now, though, the Plex 7.2 charter, which, by the way, this is different to what it was several months ago, exactly to the point I just made. A few months ago, we were thinking about removing the reliance on an older version of Visual Studio. We've taken that requirement out of this charter for a variety of reasons, which I can explain in the Q&A or later if you want. But the point is the charter did change. In the same way, this charter might change. But at a high level, our app dev strategy, don't forget now that Plex is in a very deliberate, very focused application development business line here at CA, along with 2E, along with CA Gen, along with new products like App Services Orchestrator and some other ones. And as part of that strategy, bringing how do we allow Plex, 2E, and Gen to play more easily, more happily in the modern mobile world. What we're allowing is the ability to take Plex-generated SOAP services, and we've streamlined and improved the process to get SOAP services to a .NET backend, to more easily not only get those SOAP services more streamlined and delivered, but also to get them into a layer 7 gateway, or now called CA API gateway, and that allows our brand new product, which I'm also the product owner for, CA App Services Orchestrator, to take those Plex SOAP services and reorchestrate them into more powerful contemporary web APIs, including RESTful APIs. So if your customers, your developers, if anybody's saying to you, hey, how do I do REST with Plex? This is it. You get Plex 7.2, deploy your SOAP services into layer 7 automatically, use App Services Orchestrator to orchestrate them. Then there's some, the next thing on our agenda is SQL support in the IBMI, which we can talk about in more detail later, and then adding support for Java web services to go that same route as SOAP-based into layer 7. So that's the overall charter. The Plex collaboration program, continuous improvement on what we've done before. We did 4-week sprints at 7.1. Now we're doing 2-week sprints to shorten that feedback loop. The program is open and available now. There's a link in the community. If you can't find that link and you do want to join, feel free to send me an email. But it literally helps you directly shape the release. I'll just talk to, like 10 seconds on the incremental release. What we're thinking of doing, again, subject to change and withdrawal, is that layer 7 app dev auto deployment of SOAP services. We're thinking about making that available as an incremental release. So instead of waiting 12 months to get your hands on that when 7.2 comes out, say, this could be available, around November, December time. Again, no promises on dates or features, but you get the idea. But once you get an incremental release, which will be available to any Plex customer, you stay on that release train and you'd have to upgrade to the next incremental release, which might be SQL or could be Java or whatever, to keep getting that support. So I know that was super fast. I went a minute over. John, over to you.
Yeah, no problem at all. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk about some ideas and concepts that we come across in our interaction with customers, and hopefully get some thoughts started on your end. So I have some topics here that we're seeing in the Plex community. APIs, first of all, and talk about why you should care about that and what APIs will do for you, especially around the new products that Simon was talking about, new capabilities there. Talk about uplifting and replatforming Plex systems. That's something we've seen more and more of as people modernize and take their applications to a new level. Regression testing and DevOps are also topics that are coming more and more into the forefront, and talk about some services options we have around that. I think the most important thing that we're looking at with the new release, most excited about is the API capabilities. I'm sure everyone knows what an API is. In the old days, these were components or interfaces that were probably written in C or something and then published in a dusty manual. Then you try to make use of them, and you'd spend weeks trying to get them to work. Well, this day and age, an API generally means a SOAP-based web service, or more recently a REST-based web service that is published on some kind of catalog that is quite easy to consume, and you can see the parameters and what they are quite easily. And we use these APIs to connect our CA Plex and also CA2E systems to external systems like Salesforce on the web, or ERP systems that may be in-house like SAP and Oracle, and also BPM suites like IBM and Axon Ivy. And I think the main advantage to using APIs is best illustrated by Mr. Potato Head. And in the old days, if you think of your system as Mr. Potato Head, you wanted to make a change from connecting System A to SAP or to Oracle, what have you, you have to take your system into the operating room and have a trained group of surgeons go in, remove the arm through surgery, then you have a kind of a rehab process, and eventually when the arm is reattached and everything is well again, your new systems communicate, and they may be communicating through files or through old-style APIs. Well, the new way with APIs, you can actually take and think of your APIs as reusable parts that you can simply replug a new arm in from your toolbox and quickly and more easily get your connection between Plex and SAP or TUI and SAP up and running much more quickly. So that's the promise of APIs. And we're pretty excited that CA2E and CA Plex, especially CA Plex, are going to be publishing APIs directly into the CA API Gateway. The Gateway is a product from CA that lets you manage your APIs and do things like security and things like metering, and provide APIs in a managed way to external parties or to enterprise applications, as well as publishing the APIs to a web-based portal where developers can quickly find the API they need and make use of it. And the App Service Orchestrator, of course, as Simon mentioned, will be taking older style SOAP APIs and making those new REST APIs that are more appropriate to the mobile device world, especially. So we're quite excited about that, and we're working with CA on that, and expect to see some progress there in the near future. So I would recommend keeping your eye on this area, and especially around business process modeling. Business process modeling and these type of systems can automate a business process that may span multiple business systems and take days to complete. And we have an example of an in-house process where we take CA2E models and run some analysis on them, maybe migrate a part to CA Plex, and then notify the customer. It's a fairly simple process as they go, but there's still many points of failure and there's some complexities there. And it's particularly appropriate for APIs. And we're planning to show how this process can be automated using APIs to TUI and Plex and Zendesk and Salesforce, and work in a very coordinated way using products like Layer 7 or the App Integrator. Okay, so that's topic one. Topic two, uplift and replatforming in Plex. Seen a lot of interest there. Maybe the reason you're upgrading to the newest version of Plex is you want to replatform the database or your code or something to a different platform, to a more modern platform, one that's more open. And that might be migrating the database from DB2 to MySQL or SQL Server, or maybe migrating the RPG code to Java, and then replatforming that on WebSphere with the web front end. So there's a lot of success stories out there now. Amari Metal, we talked a lot about the last conference, migrated a pretty extensive manufacturing application from C++ to C#, generated from CA Plex, of course. Bilhara France is another example of a customer that's moved from TUI to Plex and then generated Java and replatformed their application to a Linux-based platform. They're also have published a success story on this. And a couple others here, aerospace firm that's moved from C++ RPG to the Oracle Unix world. And I want to talk a little more detail about a food industry company that moved from RPG and DB2 to Java and web-based solution on a Microsoft OS platform that's actually hosted on the Amazon cloud. And they did this in a very short time frame, about 100 days. And just to talk about this company, Silocaf, they're working on a success story to publish, but they have an ERP system written in Plex, written some years ago in C++ and RPG, and running on IBM I. worked very well for them. But as they look to migrate or roll out the system worldwide to other locations around the world, that's when problems started coming up, or they needed a solution where how can we deploy this on a worldwide basis? Well, that's where cloud-based solutions really come into play, like Amazon Web Services, where they took their application, they migrated to Java, started generating web front ends using CM Web Client, mobile device front ends as well, and then hosting that on an Amazon platform with SQL Server backend that auto-scales and auto-deploys, and then rolling that out to locations around the world. So quite excited about this, and you should see some more details on this coming out in the next couple months or so about how devices and the world devices can connect up with CA Plex applications, and you can rapidly move applications from client server and C++ and RPG to a cloud environment. I'll touch on regression testing. The Plex 7.1 support for regression testing and having unique control names is quite important if you're trying to automate your testing process. Highly recommend that. See companies looking at this. It's a way to take a load off your development staff and your QA staff and have a computer do the work. And so if you're interested in that, we have a solution with WorkSoft Certify. There's other solutions out there too. Okay, and then DevOps and change management. There's a product we have called CM Web Client that helps automate the CA Plex development environment quite well. I think it's the only product that integrates with the CA Plex model and allows automation of the model management piece along with automation of the code. So that product has been updated for latest releases of Plex, and there are options to automatically deploy applications to web environments or distributed client-server environments. So if you're looking at automation and looking at improving the quality of your code, this might be a direction to look at. Okay, so there's some ideas on CA Plex. If you need help with any of these, we do have a full set of training classes around CA Plex, around the latest versions of Plex. We train on any supported version of Plex, and we can talk about and include in our courseware any of the features that may be interesting to you. So they're kept updated on a release-by-release basis. We expect to have API training coming in the next quarter, 2015, and we can provide classes on sites or via internet. Okay. All right. So hopefully that was a quick overview of some of the options that or topics that you may want to think about with your CA Plex world. And let me turn it back over to Simon. We do have a special webinar offer if you are interested in consulting. Mark probably go into this more later, but you get 5 days for the price of 3 for any service that you may need. Okay, Simon, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay. Can you, I just want to check that you can see my screen now.
I can.
Simon.
Sorry, guys. Right, so 2E 8.7. So just to remind everybody, CA 2E 8.7 is not yet GA, okay? So again, to the point about features and data being subject to change, anything that we say here may, is subject to change and withdrawal. I don't want to mismanage anyone's expectations. So let me just check my timer here. So the 2E vision, manifesto, charter, whatever you'd like to call it, it started off actually a little bit broader than this, and I wanted to talk in 2 parts about what we've actually done and how it was a little bit different. So the main thrust, the cornerstone of 8.7 is to support customers who want to move from DDS to SQL, and I'll talk about that in a bit more detail shortly. And we also added some various usability enhancements. Interesting facts about 8.7, again, it's not yet GA. We had an agile collaboration process. It was the second agile release of 2E, so we knew what we were doing. We'd already done 8.6 as an agile format. when we were working through 8.7, we had this idea up front of what we wanted to work on, drawn heavily by the, or influenced heavily by the idea wall. And one of the things on there was, for example, meaningful names for web services. When we started the actual work, though, it happened to be that we started work on some SQL portion first, and then we really got into that and got excited about it. And then at some point, we shared our backlog, literally our internal system backlog with the customers. It's the first time we've done it for 2E. It's the first time I'm aware that we've done it with a product in CA to say, look, this is what we're working on. This is behind the curtain, kind of Wizard of Oz style. And the customer said, you know what? We love this SQL stuff, the meaningful names for web services. That sounds great, but you know what? We need this SQL stuff now. Can we draw a line under the SQL stuff, get that out the door as 8.7 GA, and then can we worry about the web services stuff later? Very valuable, but not as important to the community as SQL. Let's get it in our hands now. So we said, fine. So literally that feedback, those customers, that collaboration directly shaped and massively impacted the content of 8.7. I put a question mark here because I'm not 100% sure if this is the shortest release cycle in 2E's history. Certainly shorter than the last one. I think it's a candidate for the shortest. Be interesting to know if anybody who's worked with early releases from years ago, you know, maybe pre my time here, have seen a short release. But for the first time for 2E, no beta program, you know, the same, exactly the same logic as with Plex, and that's a huge amount of trust in the team that they're building the thing right as they go along, you know, and again, the zero defect policy. We did not let our product go into manufacturing if we were aware of, you know, new bugs confirmed as a result of new development work. You know, just a note on that, we're not saying that we fixed every single bug that might have been available might have been present in 2E for the, you know, in the 30 years it's been out there. But anytime we found something that was a result of new development, then we would work to fix it. Again, the same kind of happiness graphing process. I won't show the 2E graph here, but you get the idea of getting feedback from customers. One thing I will say is, even as recently as I think a couple of sprints ago, you know, we put a feature out there. Customers took a look at it, and you know what? We got our scores were a little bit lower. We weren't scoring those 10s. And when we discussed with customers, there was this one tweak, this one piece that was missing. So we said, you know what? We can do that in the next sprint, because we're not in beta with like somebody burning the CD tomorrow. Our Agile collaboration program took that feedback. People talk about being Agile, talk about being nimble. Like the team turned on a dime, rejigged the backlog, got this thing in. Yeah, it was beautiful to see. So it's, you know, that feedback is really critical. So let's talk about what is actually in 2E 8.7 with the caveat that, you know, things are subject to change. There's two parts really: the stuff around supporting customers moving to an SQL-like database, and then some other tweaks and enhancements. So I'll talk about the SQL stuff first, little enhancements afterwards, and then talk about 2E futures. So fundamentally, if you scan back people who were at the Chicago conference a couple of years ago, well, actually, it was prior to that, wasn't it? It was probably like 3 years ago now, nearly 2.5. We had a speaker from IBM came along, and he talked on the subject of SQL and IBM. And paraphrasing, the sentiment was that IBM is putting its time, money, and effort not into DDS databases, but rather into SQL. So enhancements, new functionality, improved performance is in SQL. And obviously, 2E customers want to take advantage of that. Now, for the longest time, 2E customers have had a couple of choices of the databases that they implement from 2E, either DDS or SQL. I don't know the exact number. I'm not sure that our systems, our product are geared up to understand who's switching from DDS to SQL, but anecdotally, I think it's a smaller percentage of the customer base that might be using SQL, maybe 20%. Don't hold me to that number. And most folks use DDS. Now, for the folks who want to take advantage of SQL, you know, 2E's always ever supported SQL, you know, for the longest time. So what you could do is just take your DDS database, switch it to SQL, regenerate it, and then regenerate all your functions. You know, 2E provides that, but if you've got an insurance application or some big banking system or whatever your system is, I can imagine there might be some hesitancy, some reluctance, some worry, concern perhaps. Really, I'm going to take my entire database and just switch it to SQL, my entire business logic that I've relied on. And some of this I might not have compiled for years, by the way. I might not be in a continuous build DevOps environment. I'm going to really switch all that stuff and hope it's okay. Or I'm going to switch all that stuff and, then I'm going to have to do a massive amount of testing. Maybe I don't have QA automation set up for my entire application and for that kind of massive change. Or maybe I'm going to do it manually, which would take a long time. So we looked at this problem because our goal at CA Technologies and our goal in the 2E team is it's not to put fixes in products. It's not to put features in products. It's not to build lists of this is what's new in 2E. Our goal, what we come here day in, day out, and I mean this authentically, is to solve the problems that you guys have in business, to provide solutions. And again, I speak authentically. That's why I call that thing happiness graphing. We want to see how happy you guys are. We want to help make you happier. So we looked at this problem. This is the solution we came up with. There's going to be, we always ever had the SQL variant for 2E and the DDS variant for 2E. DDS generates a DDS database. The functions would access it in a kind of record level access way, right? Reading, chaining, moving, for example, in RPG. The SQL variant would generate what's called a DDL database, data definition language, and the functions would generate with SQL-like statements, SQL-like access. We've created a new variant called DDL. I realize it's an overloaded term, and we had long discussions and debates about this, but the new variant is called DDL. DDL will generate a DDL database, which can be accessed in an SQL-like way. This DDL database is not exactly the same as you would generate with SQL. It doesn't support views, it only supports indexes. And there are some other tweaks which is documented very explicitly and clear in our documentation. But suffice to say, you can switch your database from DDS to DDL for the most part. Okay? And then we can say, that, well, what about my existing functions? Your existing functions, the lion's share of them, the lion's share of them, what we believe to understand the majority of situations, you can leave those functions unchanged. Let me say that again. These functions that might not have been touched for years or weeks or months or whatever, that access a database, a DDS database in a record level way, they can now access this new DDL database unchanged, not recompiled, not regenerated, untouched, which means you don't have to necessarily do all the QA around those functions, right? Which is incredible. You do have the option, of course, then, that once you've got that function, if you want to switch that function to now generate as SQL-like access, you can do. If you want to create new functions that access in an SQL-like way, you can do. Also, though, and this is the tweak I was talking about. One piece of feedback from customers was, okay, I've got my function. It's unchanged. It's accessing this new DDL database. I want to make a minor change to it, but I don't want to introduce the risk or the overhead of the concern of SQL-like access now. Maybe it's 4:30 on a Friday afternoon. So you have the option to regenerate a function over this new DDL database with a traditional record level access, right? Which is huge. And then, of course, the other thing is now that you've got this DDL database and your existing functions or new functions can access it, this DDL database opens itself up to the two advantages of, one, better performance, better improvements and enhancements from IBM, and it opens itself up to, in a less proprietary way than a DDS database, to those systems, tools, environments, mindsets that understand the broad industry standard of SQL, and maybe weren't privy to understanding DDS type databases. There's some other bits and pieces in here. I know that I've got only a minute or so left to talk about 2E futures. There's some other changes here that I haven't mentioned. We don't hard code the schema name anymore, which makes the SQL or DDL database more portable, moving around libraries. We allow more meaningful names for SQL and DDL. There's some new model values. I wouldn't say complicated, but it's too broad to discuss on the phone right now. We can discuss it in more detail Of course, it's all documented in the TUI documentation. A side note here is that select and make clauses in DDS are implemented as a where statement in the new DDL, and of course we support CM for with this new DDL processing. And on that note, I'll touch on the fact that the version of implementer that's compatible with TUI 8.7 is version 11 of implementer. Okay, just version 11, because there were some changes we had to make in implementer to support these new features here. So talking about non-DDL, non-SQL features, again, subject to change, I'll call some of these out. This is cool. Well, they're all cool, but refreshing action diagram statements. When you go in, the statements get refreshed instead of having to call on a particular statement. Why convert spool file doesn't require a license for 2E or 1E on the machine you want to run it on. It's essentially now a runtime tool. I'll just touch on this last one here. Command key processing for web option. We improved the way that mouse click and key press handling is done, which means it makes it easier to use Firefox, Chrome, and Safari. But, I know you heard those modern browser names, but let me make this clear, and it's clearly stated in the documentation, it's clearly stated in the compatibility matrix, but just to make it clear here now on the phone as well, the only supported browser for web option is Internet Explorer. That is unchanged. Internet Explorer is the only supported browser. I think we support versions 8 and 9 at the moment. Sustaining engineering support are working to, improve those certifications on the new releases. So this work here is kind of like to improve the situation for those folks who want to experiment or look at Chrome, Firefox, or Safari, but we don't officially support those browsers. I won't go into the other features in detail here now. Like I said, this is more like a summary, high-level call. So TUI 8.7 plans for the future. Again, we've got the standard, all features and data subject to change, and we are still in that fluid process. We do not have a charter that I can share or publish or discuss with you right now. After TUI 8.7 goes GA, we will do our normal process of working on the Japanese version of the product, which should be in a 90-day window after GA. And to the point about, what's going to be in the charter, what's going to happen next, again, as I've been doing ever since that conference back in Chicago, the idea wall, the community, that's where we collaborate. So if you want to see something after 8.7 GA, go to the idea wall, vote an existing idea up. If you see another idea that you don't think is right for the community, vote it down. You can comment on either, explain, add some business justification. That's a great way for us to get a clearer picture of what are the business problems that you're having, how can we help you guys as a community be happier. So I would urge everybody, there is still time, we're still in planning, go to the idea wall and tell us what is it you want to see. And I think with that, and just the communities in general, obviously the idea wall is in the communities. You can talk in the community in general about, abstractly, what do you want to see as a vision for the future? What problems are you having? What are you struggling with? How do you see TUI down the line? And again, back to John's point, TUI plays in the app dev strategy. If you want to take as RESTful services for TUI, take the TUI SOAP services that we can already generate, put those into layer 7. You can pull those into layer 7 manually with the layer 7 product. And then you can use App Services Orchestrator to create RESTful proxies, which can play very nicely in a mobile world back to our tried and trusted TUI logic. There's a link here for communities.ca.com. You can easily browse for TUI. Register if you haven't. Subscribe to the community to get notifications. Do contribute in there. One thing I'll just add on here is, it's not just about what you get out of the community. Sometimes we're looking for answers. But, in order to get answers, somebody else is contributing. Sometimes it's CA staff, sometimes it's customers. So it really is this two-way street. Got any problems with the community, then ask our champion community manager, Len. His email's there, len@thompson@ca.com. And with that, I will hand back over to, I think it's John or Mark. Thank you very much, guys. Hey, John, Mark?
Yep, thanks, Simon.
Okay.
Am I okay, Simon, on the slide?
Yes.
Okay.
1 second. I'm looking at mine. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, yeah, I want to go through some some concepts on 2E, some ideas there, just like I did with Plex. Okay, so first thing is the support for uplifts. If you're looking at 8.7 or 8.6 and doing an uplift, you know, that's something you certainly can take on yourself. It's not a difficult process if you kept up to date. If you have an older release that's way back there, then there can be some more involved steps. We want to consult with CA support. If you don't want to do it yourself, we do have a service to help with that, where we can do an assessment and upgrade, usually in 3 days or 3 to 5 days, depending on the size of the model and the complexity. You know, sometimes more than that. Again, compared to we have many models to upgrade. And as part of that upgrade, we can also do training on SQL or other features that you may want to make use of with the new release. Okay, so upgrades. SQL integration, we're quite excited about this. Really opens up 2E in a variety of ways. I mean, DDS certainly is tried and true, but so is the card catalog system. So you need to look at new ways of doing things, and DB2 SQL access is really a way to do that. And if you would like training on this, we do have a module that's part of our advanced training for 2E. So we can either do it as a standalone class, one-day class, or as part of an advanced training program for folks who need to maybe brush up on some of their 2E skills. Web option keeps getting better. You know, Simon mentioned improved command key support, which will help with the cross-browser compatibility if you're going that direction, which, as Simon mentioned, is not fully supported by CA or not supported by CA, but people are using web option on multiple browsers. You have to do some work yourselves on your own skeletons and templates. If you like help on that, we can help with that process of doing cross-browser. We can also help get you up to speed on web option with a 2-week quick start, where we do training and get your top 25 screens up and running, so you have some really quick progress on making your application web enabled. Okay, so web option. CM, that's also known as PTC Implementer. As Simon mentioned, with version 8.7, version 11 of Implementer is required. Okay, so if you want to make use of SQL and you want to run in a supported environment, you have to upgrade your Implementer version. That's also something we can help with. We do uplift support. We can do the uplift for you, or as part of a mentored approach with training. We're PTC partners as well as CA partners, so whatever we do will be part of or sanctioned by the PTC team as well. And we're very excited about the improved support for SQL object types. So you'll be able to upgrade in 2E, make use of the new SQL object types, and then have Implementer make it possible to move these changes to production very quickly and easily. So that's a really good story around SQL and Implementer. Next concept is Plex and 2E. If you're looking at web services, 2E is going to support web services to a degree, but if you want to take it to the next level, probably have to look at a tool like Plex that can really generate very complex web services. And Plex and 2E can play together. You can take your database from 2E, take a copy of that schema, migrate it into CA Plex with the tool that CM First has, keep developing in 2E, and then start developing in CA Plex. That's one avenue to go down. So there you have the kind of best of both worlds, and you have 2E for your existing business applications and Plex for doing some maybe more modern work where you want a web front end or you want a mobile front end, where Plex is more suited to development. And around that, there's also the possibility to take your entire business logic from 2E and move that to CA Plex. Okay, so if you have an application in 2E and then you want to really prefer that be running in Java on Linux, accessing MySQL, for example, that is a possibility. We can migrate on a model-to-model level, migrate the database structures, migrate the action diagram code, migrate the panel designs, and bring those up into a more modern environment where you can generate for a browser application. You can change your backend out to be a WebSphere Tomcat web server. Okay, and your backend database can also change if you wish to Oracle or SQL Server or some other database platform like MySQL. So we have examples of that. If you want to take a look at it, we can show you how customers have taken their application from 2E into Plex and have gone forward with that. So that's an option for you as well. We'd be happy to talk about that at any time. I'll just mention our webinar offer again. Okay, so I think we're pretty much on time, so I'm going to basically turn it over to Mark. Mark, maybe we should show that event slide. I think we skipped over that. I can,
okay.
You want to mention that? I think that's pretty important. Make you presenter. Okay, Mark, I've switched over to you.
All right. Actually, the first takeaway, we're going to move into questions here quickly, but the first takeaway is really talking about 2.8.7. There is going to be a deep technical dive webinar with CA that will be in November. Simon, I'm putting you on the spot for the week after CA World. Give your liver a few days to recover from Las Vegas, and then you can roll into a deep technical dive.
Yep.
Also, the CA community is sponsoring a SQL webinar that, again, is happening in Q4. There are details right there on the community page as well. So my second takeaway was that the wiki is operating. If you look in the question area there, the link was incorrect in the presentation, but we did correct it and update it, and it's working. And so basically you get that, and I hope you became aware of a number of different third-party solutions that play very, very well with the 2E and Plex models. Third takeaway, please get involved. We have had almost a doubling of participation in the CA community. For you introverts out there, you can just be in listen mode and you can observe the threads and the conversations going on there. But we all know that there's a reservoir of talent out there in both of these domains, and you may have fixed problems and thought through things that other customers might be struggling or hadn't considered yet. The community is a great area there. The customer validation just shows you that people that have got good ideas for future features are getting play and getting the attention of Simon's staff and engineering. And the ideal wall is a great way to test out features and to see that, because you thought of something, to see if others concur with you. Fourth takeaway, that it's possible to modernize your 2E assets with the CM First, the M3 solution. Next, come to the Worldwide Technical Conference. It's going to be in Austin, Texas, where I'm talking from. It's May 18 through the 21st in 2015, and it will be the best. It'll be the best conference yet of the 7 that we've had. And last, you get the idea that John was talking about, is that if you engage for 5 days, then you can get 2 days of consulting. So let's move into the questions. First one deals with a single sign-on and Kerberos, and I'm going to ask that to Simon. What's the status of single sign-on?
Single sign-on Kerberos support. So that was. We talked about how the charters morph over time. I believe that Kerberos support was something that was on the list for Plex 7.1 when we collaborated with the customers and talked about, okay, so this is what we think that they were aiming at. What do we want to do here? The customers were so keen to get this functionality around the Windows modernization. We're desperate, we're eager, keen as mustard to get from C++ to .NET, that we the agile collaboration community, if you like, didn't deem that Kerberos support to be of sufficiently high value. I don't think it's reflected on the idea wall as being sufficiently high value by the community, and so it was taken out of 7.1. Right now, like many other things that are on the idea wall, as you saw that draft charter, it's not on there. Again, if there are people in the community who want to see Kerberos support, go and vote on it and represent that voice through the idea wall. You know, that's all I can say about that right now. Well, that's not the only other thing that springs to mind is when you're voting on this idea, a reiteration of what I said before. If you can put a business justification of why, for example, Kerberos support is valuable to you and your business, and we can get more people echoing that business justification, it helps us to prioritize. So right now, no plans for Kerberos support in 7.2, but like anything, that can change based on customer collaboration via the idea wall. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, great. My next question is for John. This is from a customer in financial services. They're looking at going from CA2E to Plex, but they're very concerned about high availability and high volume transactions. So how does the Plex model address that?
Well, Plex is certainly proven in that type of environment. So just like 2E generates, very efficient code, so does Plex. Certainly that type of thing would be a challenge we want to look at carefully, but I don't see any underlying issues with architectures that we need to be aware of there.
Okay. Simon, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't. I mean, I'm not familiar with me personally with that kind of like high transaction area with Plex. But one thing that I would, and I don't want to feel like I'm just like constantly banging on the same drums, but I think there is a consistency of message, which is if you're in that environment and you're thinking about moving into that environment or you've got problems with it, there may well be other people in the 2E community that are either A, they've already solved that problem or found that it wasn't a problem and can offer you tremendous reassurance and confidence to take a particular product or architectural technical route. There might be people who did have a problem and they came with a solution that can offer advice. The other thing is, though, and again, this goes back to the community and the power of it, there may be multiple people who have got the same problem, none of whom have a solution right now today. But when those people come together, maybe through the community, maybe openly through chatting in the community, or we can set up dedicated webinars around this, or we can host, get in touch with me or Dan Shaw, the product manager. We can host dedicated calls with a subset of customers and say, look, these 5 companies, we're all concerned about this problem. None of us really know what to do about it. What should we do? And it's amazing to me over the past 2 or 3 years, the power of diversity. When you get different people with different perspectives, different experiences, challenged with the same problem, it's amazing what impressive, innovative solutions you can get to. So I would say, make use of the community in this scenario or any other novel scenario where you want to get advice,
Okay.
experience from elsewhere. Sorry for rambling on. I get a bit excited about diversity, Mark.
I'm sensing your thrill of excitement. Along that line, I've got a technical inquiry looking at the SQL enhancement. Are there any plans to update the SQL RPGLE generated code, specifically to list fields in select instead of select asterisk?
Okay, so that's a good question. So there were not that. I don't know about that specific issue, but there were other SQL-related issues that we kind of talked about as we were working on 8.7. One of them, for example, was the optimized keyword for SQL. Should we be making better use of that? At the end of the day, we decided as a group, as an Agile collaboration community, we decided not to put that in. By the way, even though some people in the group did want it, we decided as a group, with consensus from everybody, not to put it in, because the release was focused around, and this is a good point to make actually, the release wasn't necessarily focused around making our SQL better. It was about bringing parity to this new DDL variant so that people could move from DDS to DDL. Things like the optimized keyword, which didn't fit in there, an SQL enhancement like the specific one you're talking about here are absolutely candidates for the future. I talked about the fact that our charter is not fully drafted and published yet. This is a great candidate for that. And by the way, one other thing I'll mention is you touched on it in your events. On the 9th of December, there's a TUI community webcast. Any TUI customer can come along to it, and we're going to talk about SQL improvements. This will be a great place to have that conversation. Why is it important? Why is it valuable? What is the business justification? Why is that more or less important than the optimized keyword? What else is important to people out there? And that's going to be one vector, one avenue of communication that will help us understand, again, what are the problems the community has? How can we prioritize this stuff? How might this fit into a future charter? So thank you, Mark.
You're welcome. We have time for one more question. And Simon, this is going to be a test to see if you can qualify to become a CA lawyer someday.
Oh, wow.
Is there an estimated release date for CA 2E version 8.0?
8.0.
No, 7.8 isn't GA yet. Yes.
I'm guessing that that's a typo, and the question should say, is there an estimated GA date for 8.7 GA?
That question was also asked. So you can answer that one.
Okay, I'm sorry. So I guess I either misheard or misunderstood the question. 8.7 GA. So 8.7 is not GA yet. We are in the throes of making it GA. I cannot give a date on that because we've talked about the features on it, and you talked about like the legal requirement. I cannot guarantee a date, but I would say watch this space.
Right. Okay.
And was there was the other question about, was it?
The question was about 8.0.
Yeah, but 2E or Plex?
It just says release 8.0.
Of?
It must be Plex. It has to
okay,
be Plex,
all right,
right?
okay. So if I can put the same kind of answer to that. So the release we're working on now is Plex 7.2. I hope that there's going to be an incremental release of that soon, perhaps by the end of the year, but do not rely on that. The full version of 7.2, it might come out maybe around April next year. Again, that could change. It might be more like May, but that could change. 8.0, someone's talking about a release after Plex 7.2. So if we tentatively say that Plex 7.2 might be April, May next year, I would think that 8.0, which is not even on my radar right now, that might be in a 12-month window after that. What we were trying to get to is, could we put a release out of a product every 12 months? And could, if we're doing a release every 12 months, can we put an incremental release out to give some subset of the value into customers' hands, within that 12-month window? But like I say, that's a goal. We're not there yet. And all these features and dates for anything that's not out the door, they are subject to change and withdrawal. I don't want to keep saying that, but that's the legal context. Thanks, Mark.
You're very welcome. Anyway, that concludes our webinar for today. I hope that you got your share of valuable takeaways from this event as well. I want to thank our panelists, John Rhodes and Simon. Again, thank you very much, gentlemen, and everybody stay tuned for our next webinar, probably in the spring of 2015. In the meantime, tune in to CA the week of the 17th. We'll be doing a deep dive technically on 8.7, and then December 9th, we're talking specifically about SQL and the new version of 2E. So stay tuned, and thank you, everybody. Have a great Halloween, and enjoy the rest of the week. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.